Well, good morning and happy Moon Day. It's Claudia Thompson of Moon Powered Astrology here with you at the beginning of your week. And what a week it is. We're in the wake of the Gemini new moon, which was more far reaching than a Gemini new moon normally is. And we'll talk a little bit about that and how to use this cycle for your greatest good and what is highest good and greatest joy. So first of all, Gemini is speedy. It's mercurial, ruled by Mercury, which is also traveling through Gemini. It's at 14 degrees right now, although the moon currently is at 14 degrees of Cancer. So the moon is at home in its home sign of Cancer. And as the week rolls on, we are going to have the moon in the solstice happening. Hold on, I'm going to close this door because I have neighbors close by and they are noisy this morning. So hold on, see if that helps, because I want you to hear all this juicy stuff this morning. If you're here on the live stream with me, please check in, let me know. And many of you shared, or more than usual, my post the other night. And it helps me so much when you share my work. My videos, I love it when you share them, and I would really like to see the amount of sharing go up. That would really be a good reward for me for the work that I put in for these live streams. Replay will be available on YouTube and Facebook, just so you know. But of course, we're going to do, as I said, in speedy mode with Gemini, we're going to do a quick way to move into your heart. Really important to keep that 18-inch connection between head and heart during this lunar cycle, as Gemini is an air sign, and it's all about that mental brilliance or overactive monkey mind, depending on which mode you happen to be in. After all, it is a sign of the twins. It can go two ways. So I'm going to ask you to put your feet on the floor. Feel that energy from the earth come up through your feet. Notice where the breath is in your body. Is your belly moving? As you take a breath in, all the way to the top of your head, to your crown, and you exhale more slowly than you inhale, touch your heart center. Take that breath up, knowing that the prana, the life force, that gift from a source that sustains your physical existence, moves through every one of the trillion cells of your body, quickening, enlivening, all the way to your fingertips, from your toes to your crown. White light pours down through your crown, and as you touch your heart, your consciousness moves with that white light down behind your face, behind your throat, through your neck, through your chest, and it comes to your heart, which you are touching. And oftentimes that's a really, really quick way to get into your heart center, to just touch it and then breathe in and out of your heart. On the next inhalation, breathe in rosy light, rose quartz, beautiful crystalline light that fills you, your heart, all four chambers with self-love. I deeply love and appreciate myself. This is a really good thing to say as many times a day as you think of it, either touching your heart or tapping your thymus, which is between your throat and your heart. And now you add emerald green to the mix, heart healing, opening the heart to love again, love more. And that light expands through every one of those trillions of cells in your body and moves out through your skin to fill the field around you. And now your whole environment is filled with love, self-love, overflowing so that there's plenty to give. And the magnetic field for you to receive is also created. Feel how good that feels. One more breath in. Longer breath out through the mouth. And open your eyes and come back to be with me. So I just want you to know how much I appreciate all of you. And I'm always sending you love. And I'm always chanting for you. I chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo in the mornings. I start my day off like that. So you're all I'm always chanting for your highest good and that you manifest your desires happily. So, yeah, 9:36 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time saw the ignition of a new beginning, a fresh start regarding communication, all things communication, writing, connecting. We are about to come to the midpoint of the year, which in the natural lunar calendar is like the full moon of the year. So we are in the last 2 days of the gibbous phase, and that's the pressure cooker phase in every lunar cycle. But this is the gibbous phase of the year. Each phase is 6 weeks long. So polishing your progress, or perhaps you find that you've really had a bit of confusion as the eclipse in Taurus closed that door behind you and told you that you have to do either something completely different or to do things that you are doing very differently. We're always looking at raising our frequency, right, as we're in this time of ascension. And we are all on the path. All you light workers are on the path to becoming transcendent galactic humans. And this new moon really lit that message up. And this is a new moon of messages. How you message. What are the messages your thoughts send to yourself? What do your words put out into the world? It reminds you that your words and your thoughts, your consciousness creates. Gemini is a mutable air sign. The word mutable means changeable. So flexibility is a virtue during this cycle, but it's very important to stay grounded, to feel your feet, take a breath from all the way down, from your feet all the way up. Oftentimes, people who have strong Gemini energy are chest breathers. They're not really down in their root chakra. They're not really grounding all those brilliant ideas that come through. And they can be information junkies. So it's really important that you watch, that you take note of the sources from which your information comes. Your higher source is a really good way to check, to see if the information that's coming in resonates with your heart and with your values. Is it aligned with your vision, your values? Or are you making decisions based on the collective media cabal? Just be careful of that. Because oftentimes information isn't useful and you want to stay on track. You're here for a purpose. You're an important thread in this tapestry of evolution that we're weaving right now on the planet. After all, the Aquarian age will last for 2,000 years. So we are the Johnny and Joanna Appleseeds of this new era that's being ushered in. Of course, right now we've got Pluto moving back since the 11th through Capricorn. And we are looking at all of the systems and the institutions and the top-down power structure that comes out of old beliefs. What are the traditions that we continue to uphold that are no longer useful? We get to look at ourselves as our best resource, and then how we can be more resourceful in creating a new, different way that honors community, that looks at groupthink. You know, solopreneurship has been a big, big deal over the past few decades, but that era is coming to an end. And Gemini is the sign, it's the cycle where we connect, we look at networking, more, it's a social chatty sign. And we also look at how we can make the connections and buff up our communication so that it's at a higher frequency. An example of a low frequency is gossip. It's out of spiritual integrity. And oftentimes that means that there may be what seems like dead airspace, which Gemini, absolutely, that energy does not like that dead airspace. It will fill it with chatter. But as my grandmother used to say, she didn't say if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. She said if you don't really have anything to say, don't say anything. What a concept. Take a breath, drop into your heart, raise your frequency, because you are a way shower, not only a light worker, but a way shower lighting the path for others to take the chance to be courageous from, about taking a radical fork in the road. So as I look at this, at using the Gemini cycle, I mentioned the transcendent galactic human. This new moon was opposite the galactic center, which means that those of you who have planets at 27 degrees of Sagittarius are currently aligned. That planet is aligned, Sagittarius, with the galactic center. This only happens where we travel in tandem like this every thousands of years. So this is big stuff. And so the messages that come through, especially as we move in, the sun moves into Cancer later this week, intuition, taking the time to meditate, to be quiet, to allow your breath to be mindful. It said that 33 conscious breaths a day will change your life. So you can be floating on your back in a pool if you have one, or just allowing yourself to sit and breathe 33 conscious breaths. If you inhale, and Gemini rules the inhalation, that's why all that information, it inhales all that information. But remember, facts don't create, feelings create. So watch what star regarding facts you're going to hitch the wagon of your emotional energy to, because that's how you'll create. And the galactic center may be sending you messages on a gut level, into the heart. If you have that kind of connection, or you're being tapped on to enliven that kind of connection, this new moon may have kicked off something. It may also show you where you are, where the world is too much with you. Gemini says act locally. Sagittarius is think globally. So act locally, think globally. Connect with your community. Connect with those closest to you, with your loved ones. And be curious. Some of I mentioned that Mercury is in Gemini, but also Juno is in the last degree, 2 degrees of Gemini. Juno is the asteroid that signifies relationships. So your relationships will really show you a lot about communication during this lunar cycle. If you are present with people, if you are curious, then you breathe and listen. Conversation is two-way. Sometimes Gemini energy, especially with Mercury there, can just chat. It just wants people to think that it knows everything sometimes. And it is a learning sign. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, Gemini is about learning. Sagittarius is considered to be the professor of the zodiac, the opposite. It's one of the wisdom keepers, the truth seeker. And it has to do with our beliefs. So we're asked to really be cognizant of where our words are supporting beliefs that don't serve us, that create structures or support structures in our life that are no longer viable. So it's important that you get your beliefs aligned with your vision, and that your words are of a high vibration. And we all know that swear words, for instance, we're all allowed to, we have freedom of speech, so we can say what we want to, but just be aware of what you're putting out there when you allow low vibratory words, low frequency sounds to go out. Because sound creates light, and light moves in densified form into matter. So it begins with sound. So your words, your conversations are never idle. Begin to live as that person that you want to create: abundant, prosperous, healthy, wise, loving. And look at the content of your thoughts. Is your self-talk loving? Or are there still tapes playing from childhood? Gemini represents the 3rd house in the universal chart. And that has to do with how we learned communication through our relationships with our siblings. Or if you didn't have siblings, that's another thing. Then it's with your parents. But Gemini has to do with that early communication. So sometimes we find that we're defending things, defending beliefs out of these old combative stances, this debating that went on, the pecking order in our early childhood. So we get to clean that up and really look at that during this cycle. And if you're getting any galactic messages, I would love to know that in the comments, because I know I've been asked to tune in more clearly. And so this is an opportunity, and it's a mirroring. Where is your conversation not elevated? It doesn't have to be pontificating. That's the downside of Gemini. But that curiosity, where you really cultivate a genuine curiosity about other people and their lives, and you will find that your conversations are amazing, and that your connections, the people that are really like-minded, that are really part of your tribe and your team that you want to network with, come forth. Change is a sure thing. And Gemini reminds us that when you change your mind, when you change your consciousness, your life changes. So that's kind of a truism for the Gemini cycle. We're going to have a full moon on the 3rd of July in Capricorn. And so that'll take us back to looking at what we put forth at the beginning of the year, which was the winter solstice. So we're asked to think globally and also cosmically and galactically during this cycle. Now, Gemini's light, it reminds us that enlightenment is lightening up. And I put a good synopsis kind of post on Facebook. You might have seen it. I know a couple of you shared it, and I'm really grateful for that. But I'm finding out the ways of my communication that serve you the best. So I love input regarding that. What benefits you? What insights gave you an aha moment that really helped you navigate your week in these times? So some things to cultivate, as I mentioned: breathing, listening. Oftentimes we learn when we're listening. An open mind, keeping an open mind, because oftentimes other people's perspectives can help us target those old ways of using language, the way we put beliefs forward that we might not even be aware of. And the South Node is still in Scorpio until next month, helping us clean up a lot of that stuff that's associated with old hurts, old wounds, and old perceptions of power. Connections and networking, mindful conversations, mindful communication. These are the things we're cultivating. High vibe thoughts and high frequency words. The connection between the head and the heart. And as we move into the solstice and the sun moves into Cancer, we're going to be moving also from our gut to our heart. So so that we know that those intuitive knowingnesses, which oftentimes the mind, the mental chatter will analyze right out of existence. And that can show you some old beliefs too. But we all have those gut knowingnesses, and we're about to have that really ramped up as we move into the Cancer sun cycle. And cultivate curiosity. Avoid information overload, being scattered. Gemini is known as a multitasker of the zodiac. But many people are, speaking about how multitasking without a clear focus doesn't work. So that's one of the challenges. Avoid not being grounded, not taking the time several days, especially if you're in conversation, to feel your feet, to breathe into your heart, so that your communication and face someone. Communication that's face-to-face, you'll find, is so much more powerful than if you're yelling to another room or you're looking sideways. It's also very charismatic. And we've got a lot of stuff in Leo right now. Charisma, Venus, Mars. So when you're talking about relationship and you're moving from the heart, which is ruled by Leo, and Leo is also ruled by the sun planetarily. So when you really give someone your full attention, it's very charismatic, and the benefits all the way around flow much more powerfully. So thinking of what you say, things to avoid, thinking of what you're going to say, as opposed to really being grounded and listening. Because oftentimes when Mercury's in Gemini and we're in this cycle and we're looking at these things, our minds are moving so quickly. We really get to see our monkey mind at this time. And is your mind a worthy servant, or does it try to be the master, constantly yakking away? So another thing to cultivate, of course, is meditation and reflection during this time. And Saturn retrograde, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, supports that. Remember, conversation is two-way. Two-way. So take a breath. Have the ends to your sentences and your thoughts so that other people can engage with you, because ideally this is a cycle of engagement. So if you are scattered or you have trouble focusing, feel your feet, breathe, and your intentions will always guide you back to where you need to focalize. If you're off track, if all the information you're taking in has nothing to do with your values or with the intentions that you've set out, and we're still in a new moon phase, so if you haven't set your intentions, be sure to set 3 or 4 intentions. Of course, always a health intention. And the multitasking, without accomplishment or productivity, without that focal point. That's why your intentions are really going to be important this month. Do you want to reconnect with people? Are there new groups you want to connect with? What's your message in life? What's your message in your business? How are you going to support that? What's your message in your family? Is it loving? Because the solstice is going to take you back to your roots. So Gemini rules the lungs and the shoulders particularly. Therefore, breathing mindfully, being aware of your breath, noticing when you get stressed, where's the breath? Does it jump up into your chest? Are you, chest breathing? In through the nose, 4 counts. Out through the mouth, 8 counts. What does this do? You do this 3 or 4 times. It calms and balances your parasympathetic nervous system. Very important, because the ruler of Gemini, Mercury, rules the nervous system. And boy, the nervous system is really jazzed up in the world these days, isn't it? Plus, at the time of this new moon, the same day, Saturn moved in retrograde motion. Pluto's retrograde, now moving back through Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, Capricorn, and Saturn is moving retrograde in the sign of Pisces until November 3rd and 4th. So it has to do with power. Pluto always has to do with power. And Saturn really asks you to look at what you've been building. As it moved into Pisces, it held out the promise that we could make our dreams real, that we could bring them into reality. But the challenge is that Pisces can stay in fantasy land, since Neptune is still, the ruler of Pisces is still in Pisces. You can get lost in the fantasy and not grounded. With Jupiter, there's a nice angle between Saturn and Jupiter going on now for the whole year. It's called a sextile. And this tells you that the energy of Jupiter in Taurus is asking you to really ground your vision, to be resourceful with that dream, to bring it into reality. Saturn says, let's build something. You may find that as you look back over what you've been building, over what you've been putting, the blueprint that you had in place, the plan, with that door closing at that Taurus new moon eclipse at 29 degrees, you may be revamping, redoing, restructuring, replanning, revisioning. That's all going to be appropriate over the next few months. And as what you are doing comes out of the light of day at the time of the solstice, you will then be on this journey to look at what you're birthing, what you're launching, what's culminating out of the past 6 months of this year. So if you find that you're wearing your shoulders up here in your ears, breathe, lower them, relax. Gemini actually is a light sign. It's like the waves on the ocean as opposed to the depths of the ocean. Variety is the spice of life to Gemini energy. And that's why having your values in order and being aware of the frequency that you're beaming out to the world through your messaging. And your thoughts are things too. They're beaming out. That's why being from head to heart, so that that light, your heart light shining, is so important. So just being aware of those things, lowering your shoulders, breathing. No disease. They found that cancer cannot exist in an oxygen-rich atmosphere. So movement. There's a lot of brilliance associated with Gemini, especially with Mercury traveling through Gemini. So allow those ahas to come through. Keep track of the relevant thoughts and don't allow too much media time. The media is ruled by Gemini. It's said to be the most powerful soul group on the planet right now. But because it's ruled by Gemini, you can see that it operates at a very shallow level sometimes, and it will tell you what to focus on. It wants to program you in the old traditional ways and halls of power. No, you get to program yourself with the frequency that you desire, that matches the world that you envision. So with relationships this month, this cycle, we've got Juno and Mercury in Gemini. So set your intention for relationships. You want someone you can talk to, right? Who's on your wavelength, who, shares similar ideas, but not someone that you have to be combative with all the time. So at least that's in my world, loving, supportive relationships. So look at how your communication can underscore that or attract that during this cycle. And remember, you attract what you affirm and you receive what you believe. So that's the balance this month. So if you can say your intentions out loud, it's doing your feelization every day. That's a really, really powerful thing to do. And if you find that this Saturn retrograde brings you a little melancholia, just, ask source, ask your guides and guardians to bring you those messages around what you're being asked to revamp or rebuild, or where you might have taken a misstep and you need to go back and look at that. Because ultimately, Saturn holds out a really nice promise, which is that it will pay you back for hard work. It will pay you back for lessons learned. It also helps because once you've learned them, you don't have to repeat them, right? Although you may find that that's something that Saturn retrograde does bring to you. So I found it interesting that Saturn moved in retrograde motion, and Saturn represents traditionally, usually, the masculine authority figure in our lives. And then the next day we had Father's Day. And if you're on the East Coast, you might have found that this energy was more on Sunday, right on Father's Day. So I wish all of you fathers out there a happy Father's Day. And of course, you mothers too, because I'm always talking about the moon, which is considered to be feminine in our current culture. So as we move forward through the week, we remain in the new moon phase until Wednesday. And on Wednesday, we will move into the crescent phase of the moon, where you get the resources that you need gathered together so you can get your intentions into manifestation, but also you see where you're struggling to move away from the past, the inertia that those old things from your roots bring up. And that's so perfect for the solstice, birthing a new season at 7:57 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And that's when the sun moves into Cancer, which is so interesting, I think, because Cancer is a sign of the moon. And so even though the seasonal change happens when the sun moves into that sign, 0 degrees, it's called the world axis, 0 degrees of Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, and Libra. 0 degrees, as you've heard me say before, is a point of initiation. And it is, in effect, the full moon of the natural year. Now, if you are in the southern hemisphere, it's the first day of winter. So if you're in the southern hemisphere, Australia, for instance, it's the longest night. But here in the northern hemisphere, It's the longest day of the year, the maximum peak point of the light. And you may find that you have ancestral downloads, that there is a memory download that comes to you during this time. We shift from all the mental energy that we've been experiencing in Gemini into roots, family, intuition, emotions. And we birth something. Something is now being birthed. It may be an awareness out of what you put in motion, what you planted deep in the earth of your consciousness, so to speak, underground at the time of the new moon of the natural year, which was at the winter solstice on the 21st of December. So you might look back at the Capricorn new moon and the Aquarius new moon and the Pisces new moon for your plan and strategy, your vision, and your dream. And now, are those still viable? Are you on track? Have those lain fallow, or have you done something with them? Or do you find that your path has taken a completely different fork in the road? When we move past Pisces, we come to Aries, where all those great ideas came, when we planted lots of seeds and they popped up, but they weren't really rooted. And then the Taurus cycle woke us up to what we want to root. Which of all those ideas that we're dancing through, those bold and daring ideas that required bold and daring action in Aries, which ones are sticking? Which ones are we going to put our time and our resources behind? And that's one of the things too. Saturn is Father Time. So when it's retrograde, it asks you to really look at how you utilize your time. It's a limited resource in our human existence. Not in the truth of who we are, but in our human existence it is. So then we come to the Taurus cycle, and following that is Gemini. So we look at what we've been rooting, we look at the door that closed behind us, and the new field of experience that awaits us, and the connections and the networking and the messaging and the communication that we want to put into play. And also to play, to remember, because at this solstice, we'll move into Cancer, that's the inner child. Divine Mother, it's a mother and child relationship. And this cycle also has this overlay with the Capricorn full moon coming of asking us to look at what we do for a life that supports us when we're out and about in the world making a living. They have to be in balance. And it's no accident that Cancer always draws us back to family reunions and back to our roots. And that's why this particular solstice can be a wonderful time to get those ancestral messages and do some clearing for your whole time track, for any ancestral baggage that is still preventing you from moving forward. After all, the south node in Scorpio is in a trine, pretty exact, in a trine with this solstice position of the sun. So you might find that there's some light that shines in the basement of your psyche, bringing up some old emotions, beam love to them. And at the time of the solstice, light some candles, take some time, if you can, on that day. And for the 2 days following, in ancient cultures, because as we turn a phase, as we turn a season, the sun doesn't just pop and we're aligned. It happens over a 72-hour period. Even though that ignition point, that door, that portal that opens to light, to birthing, to launching, to culmination, to reflection, happens at the time that the sun moves into Cancer. So definitely celebrate this peak of the light. Breathe it in, be grateful for it. Light some candles, bake or cook. All these things that have to do with family and home. Maybe you want to pull out one of your mother's old recipes and try it. Something that will soothe your soul. After all, the moon has to do with soul. The sun represents spirit. So the sun, spirit, is what you consciously want and are here to manifest through your personality in this lifetime. But soul has to do with the way you nurture and nourish yourself. And it's your unconscious and subconscious processes. So you're encouraged, this particular solstice setup encourages you to take risks based on your inner knowingness, which is heightened with the intuitive abilities of Cancer. Trust in your original ideas. Open your heart to your family, your friends, your loved ones, family of origin, and extended family. Balance, create a balance between what you do for life, your home, etc., and what you do for a living. And look at all the ways you can do good, sacred self-care so that your well, which Cancer reminds us you can't draw from an empty well, but fill your well to overflowing, fill your heart to overflowing with self-love, love without limits, love yourself without limits. Forgive anything that you perceive as a mistake. Mistake, you get to take it again. Isn't that great? Yeah. And take time, take moments to celebrate. As I mentioned, Cancer has to do with intuition. So that's your gut knowing. And the sun in Cancer shines a light on the vitality of your tummy, of your stomach, your breasts, your womb. And so making sure that when you breathe, your belly is actually moving, because that's giving that oxygen to your root chakra, manifestation. And with Saturn retrograde in Pisces, that is asking us to look at how we are building a healthy immune system with the structure in our lives. The habits and patterns that don't serve are going to come up. And what kind of nursery are you going to be building for the next 6 weeks as the phase that is the full moon phase in the natural year unfolds? You've birthed something, you're launching something, and actually the last full moon in Sagittarius asked us to take a little stab at that, aligned with our truth and the beliefs that support us. But now, as the gibbous phase of the year, the last 6 weeks, comes to an end and the solstice beams that enormous, beautiful portal of light, step through, welcome the light into your heart, welcome the light into your whole being, or just re-energize the light that you are. Breathe it in. It's the stuff of which you are made. You are star stuff. So celebrate that on this solstice. Get out in the sunlight. Doesn't mean you have to be in direct sunlight in the middle of the day, but at some point during the day, please honor the sun and your solar nature and your lunar nature. That idea of sacred self-care, filling your well to overflowing. Because one of the downsides of Cancer can be mothering everybody else to avoid having to look at your own stuff and your own need for nurturing. And drawing from an empty well is disastrous. I don't know if you've ever seen a well that bottoms out. I used to live in Northern California where we were living with a well. And when a well bottoms out, all kinds of gunk comes up. It's toxic. So if you are drawing from an empty well, your giving is actually toxic. But if you fill your well to overflowing, and it's a really good concept to focus on at the time of this solstice. What does it, or what would it feel like to not have my well just half full, but overflowing, so that others draw from my overflow and my essential energy, my essential well of energy is never tapped into. It's something that was going to require work for all of us. We've been very programmed to run, to get somewhere that isn't in this moment. But Cancer, and this culminating point of the year, says, take a breath. Look back. What have the last 6 months been about for you? How is the status of your family connections and your connection with your roots? Are you running Or are you embracing? I see somebody checking in. I'm on a phone and it's really small, but I appreciate you being here and checking in. Thank you so much. And be sure to message me, comment, share. I really aim to answer comments. Facebook is kind of wonky sometimes, but I will get back to you, within 24 hours. And if you watch the replay, I'll also get back to you because I love hearing from you. So we've got an incredible week coming up. We won't move into the first quarter until next Monday. So we'll be in the crescent phase from the solstice on. You still have some time with the new moon phase going on to craft those intentions, to look at health, relationship, possibly business, home and family. The process when you set intentions and visualization is really, really key with this Gemini lunar cycle. So you write your intention succinctly. I happily and thankfully. I now manifest. It's another way you can start. I happily and thankfully manifest. And then you create a picture. Close your eyes, feel your feet, breathe, drop into your heart, get a picture of what it looks like to have that manifest right now. And then feel what it feels like when you step into that picture you've created. Allow it all the colors, the sounds, the scents, make it a full body experience. And then write any messages that you might get after you do your feelization on each intention. Your feeling, your field of feeling and visualization creates a frequency that you have stepped into. And so you have already fast-tracked what you want to manifest. The challenge is the dream stealers, right? So that's why doing your feelization, it said 17 seconds. So let's do 30, holding each intention in that high vibratory feeling state of joy and enthusiasm and excitement or relief, whatever it might be. You're on your way. So you can just and do that feelization anytime that you feel you're being pulled off course. Then you write any messages that come through as you do your feelization. Put 3 action steps that you commit to under each intention. And then your gratitude. What are you grateful for? Gratitude is the fertile soil in which all your intentions will flourish. So gratitude and appreciation every chance you get, every time you think of it, every morsel of food, every thought, every encounter. Bless your days, bless yourself. Love yourself without limits. What a concept, right? We have to teach ourselves that. Like I said, Gemini cycle, the cycle of learning. So let's learn how to do that more. Because the more we love ourselves, the more authentic love we have to spread out. Through our message, we can let that be our message, a message of love. If we put that behind our words and our breaths and our thoughts and our consciousness, what a world we will create together, right? If you have questions for me, you can message me. You can also make an appointment for a reading. And I'm going to be shifting my readings a bit so that you can have a brief reading with me, person to person if you wish, or what might be called a half reading or a full reading. Because these energies are not going away. And this portal that's opening, this portal that can give you downloads of ancestral memory, because the moon rules memory, Cancer is ruled by the moon. So now we move into a lunar sort of half of the year. The first half was, if you want to look at it, it was like solar. We are putting something out there, manifesting it, taking the action. And now it's as though we built a boat. We got our crew together, we got our supplies together, and now we push it out on the waters of our life and see how everything flows and make the appropriate adjustments. Saturn retrograde, Pluto retrograde, they're already guiding us to that. So I wish you a wonderful week. Take time to celebrate yourself, your life, the light that you are, and step through this portal. Welcome the light into your heart Use it to energize what you are launching, what you are birthing. Ask for guidance if you're not quite sure what that is, and watch it unfold over the next 6 weeks as you build your nursery, so to speak, to nurture this new creative force that's coming into your life on the wings of light. I love you so much. And I wish you many, many blessings, magic, miracles. Remember to check out on Amazon the Science and Magic of the Goddess by Jane Dement. That's the author, JaYneDemente. But it's actually 12 women who have contributed to what that means in various guises. And I have a chapter in there that's called Bringing the Ancient Wisdom of the Moon into Modern Times. So you might check that out too. Meanwhile, I'm beaming love to you. I'm beaming a message of love in all its forms to you. May all your communications be blessed. May the solstice be a major download of light for you and of sacred self-care. I love you to the moon and way beyond.